you know, I really appreciate it, and I was overwhelmed with joy to, you know, as I painted this mural to realize that, you know, it wouldn't be some people didn't want it and other people did. It seemed to go with the creek, and it seemed to fit in really well. And there's a lot of things that happen along the way, and I wanted to show you a few of the things that occurred, and I wanted to also show you the way that you can go about an idea and do different things with it, and do something like this maybe. This was probably one of the more inspiring parts of the mural that I did, and it was because of the when the creek gets full of water, it bears a reflection on the wall. It throws a reflection of the creek up on the wall, and when the water's running and it does that, it almost looks like a movie almost of the reflection up on the wall. And I have a couple videos I'll show you, but but going along with what was happening in the creek, with nature and painting nature, was something I've never experienced anything like it before. You know, I went to the same spot every day for almost a year, like 11 months or something like that. And you start to see things after a couple of weeks, you know? And it was, you know, looking at the animals and the things that the ravens did and so forth, that alone was worth it. If you guys have a yard or access to see squirrels or animals, the way they behave, the way they really behave when you're not, you know, invading their presence and they know you're there, but when they get used to you, you see a lot of really cool things. The mural started out, Barbara Nelson and Larry Nelson were the ones that helped me with everything on the mural. The project was created by Barbara Nelson, who was walking by the mural one day, or walking by that wall one day, and was enlightened with the inspiration to think, you know, we should put a mural there. And I met her a couple weeks later by chance at the Mountain Artists Guild, and that's how it all started. But the first drawing that I did for it was right here, a couple of coyotes with the night, you know, the night sky, because the sky here is a big part of everything. I love it at night too. It's like a movie. You just get to see the whole sky out here without buildings and a whole lot of lights, you know. It's funny, a lot of the ideas that I came up with they never made it to the mural. But the thing is I think it's good to get all your ideas out so you can see them all. And then other ones come later, you know, a little bit later. The mind's a terrific thing when you're working on something you really love. You know, I hope you all get to do something that you really love, because then it's worth it. Everything is worth it. I'm just going to start showing you pictures so I don't rattle on the whole time about things. This is, I did, you know, before I painted the mural, I did studies on paper, and I used gouache. Gouache is a really great paint because you can cover up things and they won't come through, so you can get ideas down really quick. And the gouache drawings were all like 3 feet, you know, like a yard long, and like 12 inches high. And I did a lot of them to get familiar with the feeling of the landscape. And they really started things off. That's a picture of the wall, and a friend of mine put it in the background. And that way you can see the whole thing. It's so long, it's hard really to see the whole thing. And he somehow was able to do it. But if you've walked along it, you know how it goes, more or less. And that's where I started painting. That was the first thing I did on the north end. And when I started painting, it was just, you know, the colors are so intense next to the dead gray, because the wall itself was pretty horrific. It was looked like something left over after a nuclear war or something. It had stains and words on it and all kinds of stuff. It wasn't teaching anyone anything. It wasn't really helping, you know. I love things as they are a lot, you know, but this one was just a long gray mark. And so it was a pleasure to hit this thing with bright yellow, you know, and the sunset almost looks like a fire, you know. One of the first things I noticed was the shadows of the creek itself, the trees and rocks and everything. The shadows made like a whole different world of it. It changed everything because it's impossible to ignore, like a giant cottonwood tree shadows dancing around on the wall. And I've learned to go along with things like that, not try to stop it or cut the branches off so it doesn't do that, And when you go along with something, especially in nature, you get like a helping hand or something. Because when I saw that could be used almost as another idea about how to, I'm thinking if there's leaves making their marks on the wall, the shadows, they wiggle in the breeze, I could put a tree in that spot and have the leaves do that. It leads to all kinds of different ways of thinking. If you give in to something that's coming your path, instead of knocking it out of the way or trying to camouflage it, if you can go along with it, you get like a bonus injection of possibilities. And these shadows right here were the first things. I'd never thought of that. You think you would think about that. What are the shadows going to do on the wall? You don't. You just think about painting the wall. And when you realize that there's other things that can happen, one thing leads to another. This was a little study I did of the tree line and the sunset, and it's similar to how it turned out, but nothing's ever the same. Yeah, I'm not sure why I did a lot of things, but they just seem to fit. They really seem to fit later on. These two, the humor and the joy of these guys doing whatever they're boxing, they do that, I guess. These rabbits at night. It just changed that whole beginning with just that one little emblem, Some people thought it was Playboy bunnies, and others knew what it was, and they were boxing. And it's strange what a little image can do next to a big one, because it's not size that matters when you paint. It would seem like it would be, but it's not, especially when you have that much space. But I never hold back. I put in things like that. If I think of them, I put them in before I can talk myself out of it. And it usually works. That's how a study of a tree line can be. Just doing it in black and white. When you get to a giant wall, and there's all that space, and it's farther than you can see at the end, it just goes forever, like freight. And just to have in a drawing in black and white, it really does help. It's like your shred of hope, against this giant wall. And so I did a lot of drawings. And, and then the drawings lead to the paintings on the wall. That's a shot of the wall with the tree line. That's the study for the tree line, for the wall. And that's, I did a lot of studies, and half of them didn't make it to the wall, But you're left with these ideas that can then take root and do their own thing. And that's why I believe it's good when, just to fulfill the thing, it's never enough. It just grows out of it and keeps growing if you let it. The ideas come to you day and night. I truly believe we're meant to do something in this life that we like. It's supposed to be like that, I think. And it makes getting up different than just getting up. This is another shot that didn't make it. I was thinking about the Bradshaw Mountains. That's where I grew up. In Dewey, near the Bradshaw Mountains. And they were the inspiration to all this, really. I was out there almost every day. When you're younger, you pretend and you play. That's where I did it. And it had some kind of an effect. These are the drawings for the ravens, which I love. They can be seen as omens of bad, or, and they get in the garbage and everything. But they are characters, and they do a lot of funny things. They would have every day at 3 o'clock, I would notice that there'd be ravens, these same ones that would go to the same place and just squawk at each other. I think they were doing language lessons or something, because they make all these different noises and they hang upside down like monkeys, and they do all these different things, and there's purpose to it. They'd be there every day at the same time to do that. I think they have groups and committees and stuff. They, yeah. And I love painting them. There they are. That's on the wall. That's how they end up. And that looks like Dewey, or over by Thumb Butte. That that tree, you know, those hills we have here that are speckled with the bushes that are everywhere, that runs across it, and then Thumb Butte behind it. And there's another shot of it. That's a shot of Thumb Butte that you don't usually see. It's from kind of behind it or the side of it. Makes it look different for once, you know. Because I've seen Thumb Butte millions of times. And, you know, just a hint of the pine tree up there. And that's another study that I did for the wall. And it didn't end up quite like that, but similar. And that's watercolor. I worked on the wall, and then I went home and I worked on the drawings for the wall. And the days just flew by, you know. There's the version of the quail on the wall. And this is another view of it with the creek and the light. You know, look what the light does. Look, it makes trees on the mural that make sense if you can see it coming. You know, you can paint your things in relativity to where you remember shadows being. And that's what I did. And I got a few moments where, you know, look, you know, just the reflection of this. Look at that. You know, it's like the diamond, the dynamic behavior of the light and the paint was something I've never seen. And I would find myself like stopping in my tracks. There'd be a part of the wall lit up by the sun, and it would be this like, you know, this moment. I mean, it would just be like a bunch of weeds or something or a rock. But when the light was on it and everything else was kind of dark, it made for like a tunnel, like a vision of something. To be there all day long and to see the shadows change really is something that I can't even put in words, but it certainly gave you hope for this world. You know, that's for sure. Just what the light does is really amazing. Yeah. That's a alligator juniper that I painted. And what I didn't know was, you know, I don't know if it's, a lot of things happen subconscious. Like, for example, I painted this whole tree here. And then as I was moving my stuff to go to the next spot down there, I noticed that by chance, oh, hold on. I'm not real good with this. Yeah, here we go. By chance, there were the roots of another tree, a real tree that grew right there, you know? And also, I noticed there at that same spot, when I noticed this, the actual tree stump that makes it look like it's part of this, if you stand in a certain spot, this tree becomes the one behind it, and it shoots up. And that's a whole nother, you know, things that can happen, you know? And as you go on and you're looking for these things, they start to show up everywhere. And there's moments where it's insane because there's just no way to crap it all. You know, like at this moment, you should just shut up and look at it, you know, and it's gone in seconds sometimes. But the idea of lining things up was something I'd never thought of until that happened. And there are walls and things behind them where you wouldn't believe what the possibilities are anywhere, everywhere. And then there was the cactus, the giant, you know, I can't remember the prickly pear cactus that the javelina, they love to eat those pears. And you can see them in the fall, you know, they're running around with bristly, with the stickers in their faces, and they're trying to get their kids to hurry up, and it's really something to see. That was a study for the javelina and the cactus that I did on the paper, and then the wall ends up, oh, that's something different. I didn't, that's another idea that I had, but here. Yeah, the studies for the javelina were a big part of that part of the wall. The javelina they're funny looking animals, you know. They look like, I'm not sure what they look like, but you've seen them, I'm sure, all of you. They're thin, they're like tall, and if they go sideways, they're really skinny, like. And at night, they look like all kinds of different things, and they sound like all kinds of different things. But I had to put them in the wall, and there's a shot of the male javelina there looking at you. You know how they do, and my blood runs cold when they stop and they turn and they look at you, you know, because it's not something good usually, and you got to be careful of those pigs because they can go crazy. That's a moment where there's a lot of holes in that wall, drainage. They have to be there. But a lot of things grow out of them too. And I thought it was great how this plant grew out of there and mimicked the plants around it. The other, you know, it fit right in. And that lasts like maybe 10 days. But while it's dying, another one's growing somewhere else down the wall. So it never ends. It never ends. There's the mother and her little baby. See that pushing out the other side of the cactus heap. And I painted them big and in the dark, just like they are. This was a part of the wall in the creek that if you go up to this, if you walk down into the creek when it's dry and you go to this tree and you turn around, you'll see that it's a portrait of that tree right there on the other side of the creek. So I just used that as my model. But what I didn't think about was, again, with the shadows at night, as the sun was setting, what it did was it put the shadow of the tree I painted right on top of this painting. You know, because I'm painting the actual tree right there. When the sun sets, it made the shadows and they land right on the tree. And it was, you know, the way the things lined up, I could get pretty paranoid about that, you know, and start thinking of all kinds of conspiracies and everything. But things worked out sometimes more perfect. I couldn't even take credit for it, you know. I mean, I didn't stand up and argue, it's not my idea, don't look at it, but I just couldn't, you know, if you feel like you're getting help sometimes when you work on something that's big, you know, really big, physically even. That's a shot of the badger and the rattlesnake and the mountains behind it. I like to, you'll notice the mural, it goes from one scene to the next real easy, like it's on ball bearings or something. It doesn't stop. And that flow was what I wanted. I wanted it to be like, you know, in your dreams, how you're in a grocery store and then you're naked somewhere else or something like that. That in between those two, there's no stop. There's no friction. It just flows. That's why you're like, whoa, you know. Or I you know, a couple times I've tried to seize that moment, but it never worked. And those mountains back there they remind me of the mountains in Mayer. When we were in high school, we'd go to the mines, you know, and before they were closed, we could still find places to sneak in. And the things that are in the mines that are in those mountains are unbelievable. There's rooms that are so big, they're like gymnasiums. And there's tables that are like as big as this, laying down like that. There's tables with gears on them, metal gears like this. I couldn't believe it. And it's like they just left, and one day everyone left and left everything there. There's tools on the tables. We'd go in those mines, and they, you know, these mountains here look like the mountains that held the mines that we'd go in and explore and stuff. That reminded me of that, so I put that in there in the mural. And, uh-oh, what happened? Oh, good. Okay. Something else happened, though. I hit something, and it made it dark. It was dark before around it. But I should just not, yeah. Okay. That's an image of the stubby for the birds that are on the side of the mural, coming out the side of the mountain. I did a lot of studies for those, just, you know, drawings like that. And at home, I did them on big sheets of paper, a lot of them, and I'd lay on the floor with a really long brush, because that was the most that they'd look like, just like on the mural, you know. So yeah, that's what all the studies were for. That part right there. Look at the shadows again, right here. Look at that. It's amazing, you know. You can't tell sometimes what's painted shadow and what's real, and they just go together and make something happen. To the point where these shadows from the tree or whatever, they almost look like the shadows of the birds, you know. And that's the kind of thing that I didn't even see that coming. And this is another shot of the shadows. Do you see the shadows coming in? That's the early part of the day when they start showing up and they shine on the birds and certain parts. But here's another study with the lynx and the roadrunner, and it looks like Chino Valley behind it. I get everything real mixed up, but and another good moment with that woodpecker or that bluebird. There are so many birds in there. There's birds, there's just so many. They're hidden everywhere. I tried to get all of them. And another great picture of that hawk. That's a hawk. And the morning glories. That's what the wall looks like half painted, which sometimes was a real wonderful thing to see. It's strange how it turns into some atmosphere and then becomes the clouds. And you know, the more rough and dirty and stuff all this is, the more silvery light you get up there. You know, so that's what it looks like painted, you know, halfway at some stopping point right there. And that's another view of what it looks like halfway. It's strange when it comes down like a veil, you know. It comes down like the mist, and things change instantly. The way that part of the creek looks with the mural, just one spot of red changes the whole way all of it looks. It's really something. That was the idea of I couldn't get the wall on one long thing, so I thought if I roll it up like that, you start to think clever, desperate ways of doing things. And then if you actually go ahead with the idea, you know, you think of a lot of things you could do all day long sometimes, but if you don't do them, it's so different just to do one or two of them, because it's never how you plan it. It's never what you think. It's always a little different in reality, you know? So I think it's important to do that when you're struck by it, or else like a dream, it does go away. Again, you can lose things with just a couple of minutes in the real world, and you're thinking about something else. So when you think of it, do it. If you write, then if you're a writer, you should write it down right there. And if you play music, it's too bad, but you got to make that noise right there too, you know? I don't know. I'm glad I do this, though. This is another idea about how to do the whole wall, but not on one long strip, because it would be like this, you know. So I did it. I stopped like a typewriter. I did it and just kept going. And then, you know, something else comes along, and I never finished that one, but I know what the idea was. Then there's the idea of painting the animals that I actually saw there, like the rabbits and the snakes, a lot of snakes and frogs and salamanders. And there's so many animals in that creek. There's so many. Coyotes come at night in there. I don't know where they come from or how they're so quiet, but I'd be packing up my stuff all the time, and I'd look up, and there they would be. And just, you're not sure if they are. When you're pretty sure they are, they're gone. You know, and they're just like, I don't know how they disappear, and they show up again. They're brilliant at that. You guys, if you've ever walked your dogs or gone on hikes and you've seen coyotes, you know how slick they are. They can show up and just disappear. It's really amazing. And then the ideas of for the birds and quick watercolors and so forth to make yourself more familiar. And I like this one because the sky becomes the other wing, you know, which is kind of neat. That wasn't thought of, it just happened. A lot of things happen if you let them. You know, gripping something with a death grip, it just never, ever, ever, ever works, ever. You know, and more ideas here, just watercolors, real quick, and like animals next to each other, and the way they look and the way they are. It's just endless. It's endless. And some things, that was, you know, an idea for the garden that I painted. There was a snake that was there every day at the same time by this, in between this tree, had like a little tent on a hole. He would always be there, you know, and he would take off for a while, but he'd always come back and sit there and look out at the creek. And so I drew him and put him in the mural, or her. Chicken hawk. More studies like that. The woodpeckers and the golden eagle. And then where he is in the environment. And painting the creek was a completely original experience. When you're painting the creek itself and you're trying to match it with the rocks and everything, and everything that's going on, it seems a miracle that anything gets done, you know. Or really, I don't know how some of it got done, but it just did, you know. These are different shots of all the birds. And some of the plainer birds, some of the ones that really hide well, the ones that stand out. These yellow birds, there was one that was a real one that landed near me, and it looked like a toy. I mean, it didn't even look real. It was so bright, like it was freshly painted. And it was like a mirage, you know, when you're still in nature, things will show up. And you won't believe what you see. You know? They really take off when we show up at first. And they're so good looking, all the animals. This is a shot of the creek again, and it's a study on paper. Lots of studies, like I said. And there's yeah. With the diamond yellow leaf right there. Look at that. You know, I thought I painted that for a second, but no, that's a little drain hole. You know? Stuff like that all day. I'd be talking to myself, and, you know, like, this is amazing. And people would think I was nuts because I was talking to myself, but a shot of the creek coming at you there in gouache on paper, and then things like that happen when you let them in watercolor. The water does everything. And another view of that with the leaves and the rocks of the real creek there. When it's dry, it looks a lot different than when it's wet. It's got a little bluegill. And there's, you know, the little creatures that are everywhere, like the frogs and the foliage and all the plants and everything. And there's that other thing that happens, right? The painting of the tree, and then it you know, turns right into the tree itself behind it. Kind of like that. I took a picture of that because it was like to remember the takeoff point if I ever wanted to try that there. And there's a snake that I took the picture of. He would be there every day, just like that, glaring at the creek and giving me the feeling that I'm a jackass, you know, for trying to get his picture. He had such a serious look on his face the whole time. It's a great thing. And there's a snake I painted coming out of the hole. You know, try to use one of the holes for that. Yeah, that was another thing I saw. A caterpillar was huge, like that long, going up you know, with the way they do it, going up a tree. I couldn't believe it. You see a lot of things, and that wasn't for the mural. It was just I couldn't believe it. Some things are so unique and beautiful that it would be really hard to do them and give them justice. But if you're inspired to do so, you have to, you know. That's a collared lizard. I took that picture in Sedona, and I put it in the mural. And, you know, mosquitoes, they made me insane. They covered in welts, you know. And I went and got the stuff to keep them away. I don't care, you know, your health, and I know all about all that. But when you're getting, it made me crazy. The itching. There's a nice shot of the reflection. What happens when you see that, you know? I would come to paint the mural later sometimes, and I would stop in my tracks when I saw what happened, and wonder what good things I've done in my life for that to happen. You know, because you can't plan that. It looks different every time, and it does different things. Just to be in its vicinity seemed like a blessing. And that's another thing that happens. Like, light would hit the thing, the clouds would cover up certain parts of the sky, but light would come through, and in this case, it looks like science fiction, but it just lit up that part of the wall. That's rays of light hitting the wall, and that's overcast. Like that, you know? It's like a giant flashlight hit the wall. And that's what it looked like. So I had to take pictures of it. That's what it looked like from regular distance. The other one was a close-up. Can you believe that? Just for a couple seconds, it does that, you know? And then I felt pretty good about what I was doing. It just seemed to be right. But that's the power of the light and the shadow, and that's a big tarp. But I had to take that picture because of the shadows of those big trees that I painted, you know, right there on the. It looks like a galaxy. Yeah. And there's another version of like the dancing light on the wall when it's overcast, and what parts get lit up and what don't. And again, you know, it dances around like that all day sometimes. And then the garden that I put in with the skunks and the flowers and the butterflies and everything, like one hot spot near the middle. I wanted to show that it's not all brown and tan, you know, it's not all rocks and dirt. There are moments of where, you know, perilous little gardens show up and last God knows how long and go away. But while they're there, it's a different world. This happened actually this happened later in the year, towards the fall. Certain things bloomed, and there were butterflies of all kinds, and I tried to get as many things as I could in there. And yeah, that's what it looks like up close. Desert willow in blooms. There's the deer and her doe and her fawn on the lower left, and the bird right there in the middle. Another view of it. And another, yeah, different times of the day, it looks different. Everything does over there. That was the study that I did. See, it's nothing like the other one, the actual, I changed the colors and a few things changed, but that's the wall and then that's the paper. And the doves rocketing off. There's another view of it with a little bit of reflection on the bottom, right there, depending on how much water is in it. And then the snowstorm, which was, I pictured Lynx Lake during a blizzard, because I was at Lynx Lake during a blizzard when I was younger, and it was amazing the way it looked. You know, an arena of snow and water and then everything else. And the way the lynxes blend in. They're so sneaky and quiet, and some animals turn invisible. They're so well camouflaged, like the owl. You know, you may just see the eyes at first, and all the business that these guys are doing, and the little creatures and all the things they do, and the way they act. The snowstorm is what led to the pointillism in the mountain lion, because after doing all those snowflakes, I was still wanting to do them, and I had to go somewhere with it, you know, and it doesn't stop. You're up there for 3 days doing millions of dots. You don't just stop. So I turned it into the pointillism of the mountain lion. I made him out of dots and got those out of my system. And then the irony of it is just there's 1,000 tons of horror right behind the little chipmunk who doesn't even care. You know, there's like little jokes and stuff like that I love to do. Because it's just, there's no way, there's no chance. But that's what's funny about it, is because it you know, it's not going to happen. But you've got her hovering above it, you know. Yeah. That was the drawing for it. That has nothing to do with what happened. Yeah. I was going to have the mountain lion looking at the things it wants to eat. And then the other things that it wants to eat are hiding behind it, like on the left there. And it's thinking about the antelope, and it could have the chipmunk, but it doesn't see him because it wants the antelope, kind of a thing. And then I even did it on scratchboard. A scratchboard's a black piece of paper, and you scrape it with something like a razor or a pin. It shows white. So wherever you make marks, it turns white. It's the opposite of drawing, like. And so I did another version of him, of her looking at the different things she could eat, and the porcupine, of course, the rabbits, and all the other ones, and you know, coyotes, mountain lion that I didn't finish, another version. A lot of different ideas. There's another mountain lion kind of hidden in there, but you can see it in a second. With the mouth and the eyes and the tongue. Kind of blended in more, you know, more abstract, but, and a pack of coyotes. Really cartoony stuff. There's a good view of the wall. And there you can see the dots turn into the cat. And then stop with the cat. And that's Prescott at night from the top of Acker Hill. In Acker Park, you know the trail there? If you go to that top of that one hill, you know, where the benches are, that's what Prescott looks like at night. And so I threw that in there too because of its, there's not that many lights yet, you know, and it looks good. And the owl above it. Different versions of what was going to be under the bridge. I ended up with the horny toad, you know, because I kept seeing them everywhere. But before that, it was a Gila monster, which you wouldn't really see so much. But it looks more like a dragon in a different way. That's why I like the idea of it being life-size all of a sudden at the end, you know, and crawling out from that under the bridge kind of a thing. Another version. And these are all different, you know, versions. That's the idea of the mural rolled up at a chalk festival there. Which somehow, yeah, this is, I was actually, if you bear with me, I'm going to try to find something here. Oh, here. No, how did I do that? Let me go back here. There's a, I didn't see it in here though. Bear with me because it's worth seeing. It's a video of what the water does with the shadows, and I guess I'm not going to find it that way. Shoot, it's not there that way. Yeah, this is exactly what happens at school. So if you guys, I'll try to think of some assignments are due tomorrow. I'll just camouflage it with that while I go racing through this, like you can't see it or something. Yeah, there's a different. This is what is in Prescott Valley. That was a mural that I did a couple of years ago, and it was for a shop that does tattoos and stuff like that. That was the whole side of it. And all the tattoos and a lot of the drawings she had and everything were really kind of dark, you know, and mystical. So that was the theme right away. And plus, when I was measuring the wall, these ravens kept flying over and making noises, and then they land on the roof and stuff. And that was a real good opportunity to feel good about doing ravens, you know, like it's an omen or something. But I do like the moons and the way they worked, and the look of the whole thing in general. I thought, you know, our planet being in the hands of these two probably would stand just as good a chance as no. But I love the idea of the mother maybe handing it to the teenage kid or whatever, the world, you know. And that was there's got to be a little bit of humor, and you know, humor is a big part of our world because it goes along with darkness a lot, and it helps shed light on things. And like Picasso said, a day without laughing is a waste of a day, you know, which could be true. This is the mural that was over behind St. Michael's Hotel, and we painted this in the barn at the fairgrounds. They have these big barns. Rather than paint it on the wall, we painted, me and Juliana Hutchinson, a great muralist, me and her painted this in the barns over the winter on the fairgrounds. And I would come here at night and paint because no one shows up and you can really get things done, right? But the thing is that there were these horror shows, these huge rats. Rats like big, so big that I would paint and I had my stuff next to me and I'd be on a ladder and I'd have a table where I could reach and grab like aluminum cans or whatever, anything to throw. Because when I was painting, I'd hear them behind me and I'd throw something and they'd leave me alone for a while. But man, you know, it's really something. There were some big rats in there at night. And I lived in Brooklyn for 8 years, so I've seen some tough rats. And some of them aren't afraid of people. You know, there was a rat that came into our bathroom and it was accused of eating soap and staring at people while they went to the bathroom. You know, that's what a New York City rat does. You know? Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't want them behind me really too close, so I would paint this mural and do that at night. And we ended up with a mural with all the different things you can do in Prescott. Some of them, you know, hiking and all that. It was and all those bricks are painted. Those are all fake, except for these. Those are real. Those are all fake painted bricks up to there. So it ends up really looking like one big, you know, thing, especially in the right light. You know, that was yeah. There's the close-ups of all the bricks. You paint so many bricks, you go to a different world almost. That's what it was like. And I looked forward to it because it was like, it was my job, yet it was also a fantasy. And I could just do that over and over and over and go, you know, end up thinking about things you'd never think of in a different world completely, just by painting the same square over and over and over. Maybe that's some kind of defense or something to be able to do it. But we painted bullet holes in it and all the things that go along with the Wild West, you know. There's the horse, the guy playing cards with the dead man hand, I think. And then the dancing girls and the bullets, and it's like calls back from the past, you know. A lot of things are really fun to paint. Those gargoyles that are on Whiskey Row, that are on tops of the buildings, you know, what I could find out was that they were around the, I think, 1920s, or some, if I remember. They were executed up there, and they were made to. This is what it said. It said they were executed to. They were caricatures of the politicians of that time. The gargoyles, you know, which is a trip. I don't know. That's really different, you know. That's going really, really far with that. But I guess, you know, maybe they were the gunslingers. I don't know, but they did that, and that was why. And then there's, you know, the music and Whiskey Row, as you can see. The murals seem to, and that great part right there, the fishing line and the fish. You know how you get something sometimes? That white line right there, and it looks like fishing line. That's all you have to do is put that right there. I put it on the edge, or she put it. I can't even remember who painted it, me or Juliana, but on the edge of your palette knife, if you cut white paint, and then you go like that, it makes a perfect, crisp line. You just need one of those, and then your eye makes up the rest of it as fishing line. And then that's a great idea to take on different, you can take that to different levels, you know. You can do a lot of things halfway or a third. If you do it right, your eye, the viewer's eye, will fill the rest in. And that's a pretty neat thing to do. You know, and in the winter, and the courthouse lawn and everything. And all the crazy shows they must have had. Yeah. And the gargoyles. But, yeah. There's another one. A wolf person. I don't know. A werewolf. That's what it looked like. And then the library was the mural. The Prescott Public Library has a mural outside. And it's in the very back part, and it's the whole wall. We did that. We painted that in 2009 or 10. 2010, I think we finished. But there's a group called the Mural Mice, and they came and they painted a few murals, and they wore mice stuff, like hats, and they had tails and everything. I helped them paint the mural, but I didn't wear any of that stuff. It was kind of different. But I did paint the mural with them. They let me paint one thing. They said, paint a robot, and if you do it right, we'll let you paint with us. But I did it right. I painted the robot, and then I got the job with them doing that. That was my first mural here. My very first one was in Dewey in high school, 84. I painted one with a friend of mine named Larry Hunt. And we painted the Lord of the Rings forest. It was from the book The Hobbit. If you open it, it shows a forest. You know, I think Tolkien drew it too. He may have been the one that drew it. But we copied that. And that one was up for like 20 years, but it finally got painted over or something. Right? This built. There's a mountain lion going down the stairs at the library. And then there's a painting of Sharlot Hall and her mom. So that was Sharlot Hall and her mom, and the wagon train. I used my dad as a model for that, so I had him turn around and wear the suspenders, and I took a picture of him. We took a picture of someone's son for the back of the wagon. You know, we used all our own models and stuff, and that was a big mural too. And I taught murals at Prescott College, and me and my class painted that one there. And I let them design it and paint. I tried to let them paint most of it, but they were, you know, sometimes they're just so slow, and they talk so much, and they have to go to the store all the time. You know, it's like but some of them make up for it, and overall it really does work. And I force myself not to step in and do stuff because they have to do it. But the second it starts to look like it may go somewhere else, I'll push the sky more or something, you know. But mostly everyone has a good heart. They want to do something good. I remember it reminded me of, I had a friend who was an old prospector, an old Navy SEAL, and he was really intent on finding gold. He would go out there, this guy went out there, and he would just sleep on the ground with his pistol. You know, he'd say, I woke up today by crunching sounds. I sat up and I was surrounded by javelina eating juniper berries, you know, and he would sometimes shoot and eat the javelina. He was a really tough guy. But he told me there was this one time where he went to the square and he walked around with a cane that had all this stuff hanging off. It was really old guy, but he still went out there. He gathered up a whole bunch of people, right? And he said to these guys that were all like, just kind of like hobos, kind of just living, you know, and drinking beer. He said, if I pay you guys, will you guys come help me? Because I know where there's some things that got to be dug out, because I know that there's gold there. So he hired them, and he told me when it was noon, they all just dissipated. They wandered back to where the beer was, you know? He tried to have them work for him for a day, and it didn't even work. But, you know, it sounds good sometimes, but, you know, you may not want to do it. And this is a mural I did over by the dorms at Prescott College, and I took successive photos of it so you could see the thing grow, you know, and it starts out like that, and does that, and then it goes to that, and it grows in weird ways. Then it looks like that, and then like that. And then it changes again and again, and then finally it ends up looking something like that, a little more like that. You see how much it changes even at the end. And then I think that's how it ended up. Yeah, that is. That's how it ended up. And that's Prescott College. But there's different things you can paint on, like, for example, I was on the airplane going from Chicago to here, to move here, and this guy next to me was, he was drinking a lot of liquor, you know. He was like a businessman. And I always draw on the airplane, so I'm going to think about how much luggage is on it and how far it can go and everything. So I'm drawing, and he says, hey, I have a yacht. I want you to paint a mural on it. And, you know, sometimes you get, you know, people, they have good intentions, but you never hear from them again or whatever. Well, in this case, I was like, okay, you know, sure. Yeah, I didn't think I'd ever hear from them. And like 2 weeks later, I got it was a cupboard that you open, and it was nautical. It had like little plastic things so it would lock. And I painted a sea turtle on it and sent it back to him. And then he hired me, so I went to San Diego to paint the Silverton yacht. And this is what it looked like. The ideas, just like before for the creek, those are ideas for a yacht or things that would go on it, right? And then mermaids. And then there's a sunset I painted on the yacht itself, right there. And it was like that. The interior, I left a lot of the wood to show. There's whales, you know. And it was such beautiful wood, you know. It was kind of hard, but when you loosen up, things go better. This is, if you sit on the bathroom, when you go to the bathroom, you sit down and you look straight ahead. I have portholes, so you can look at that while you're going to the bathroom, you know. You know, it's always like, are they going to make it? Nope, he's coming right down on top of them. You know. And then the other bathroom had that version of it with a tail ready to slap them, you know, the harpooners. And again, there's anything you can paint on anything. This was a van a friend of mine, Steve, owned, and he gave it to his son afterwards, but this is what it looked like. And then what happened was I painted it like all the endangered species, not all of them, just a few, but I painted those on it, and it ended up looking like a crazy van. I didn't want it to look like a Grateful Dead van, you know, because it's for the animals, but it was borderline close to it. And it just, you know, with the seaweed for the fire and everything, and you reverse the colors. and a big whale on the other side. Yeah, that turned out good. And that's the only time I used spray paint, was to paint that whale. Yeah, and it looks like it's bulging out from the side of the van, which is good to get the, and an elephant. And like certain things happen when you paint murals you don't plan on, but they just work out so well. Like in this case, and there's a desert wolf with the butterflies and the cactus, and the tiger is endangered. And it looks like little tigers flying around them, kind of. That's what I was thinking, to make it all unified, kind of. And polar bears on the back. So it worked out pretty good. But see that door there? Do you see the way the door opened? If you look on the left, look at that plant, right? And then when you close the door, it's like a fan. That wasn't even planned. How is it that things like that can happen when you don't plan them? So when that door opens and it slides, all those things match. And when you close it, to do that and have it, and to realize that's what was happening was amazing. Again, when it's almost like an omen that you're where you're supposed to be. Or it's just the odds, which it could be either one, whatever the odds are. And let me see. Oh, is that it? Yeah. Okay. That wasn't too bad, right? I don't want to keep you here all day.